We're 15 seconds in, 16 now. And one of the things they constantly tell you in the Facebook vlogging space, as well as YouTube, is that as soon as the red light comes on, when you're doing a live recording and the red light comes on, you better start talking, because the audience apparently doesn't like it when it's dead air. The audience despises it when you are moot or mute. Some people say moot, others say mute. Hello, everybody. Mufia, Mufaya, not Mufia, Mufaya Waluka. Hey, how are you? Hope you're well. Please tell me in the comments below if you can hear me, if I am loud and clear, so that we can get the show on the road. Chembe Mulila. Hello, Chembe. Nico Angela, good day, sir, from the Philippines. Amazing. Nico Angelo from the Philippines. Have you ever been to Tacloban? You know where Tacloban is? Have you ever been to the Jollibee? Anybody that knows anything about the Philippines knows very well about Jollibee and Tacloban and Imelda Marcos and her 1 billion shoes. It wasn't 1 billion. I'm exaggerating, but you get the point. Well, thank you for joining us from the Philippines. Appreciate that. Annabelle Mwewa. We are 160 watching you loud and clear. Well, thank you, Annabelle. You and I shared the last name. I would not be surprised, honestly. I would not be surprised if we were related in some form or fashion. Welcome. Mwene Uteka, watching from Malawi. You know, I've never been to Malawi. But the bottom line is that the Malawian people and the Zambian people are basically one. The only thing that divides us is a border. But the truth is, we are one and the same. This is what they tell me. Well, welcome from Malawi. We appreciate our brothers and sisters from Malawi. Thank you so much. Guys, you know, not too long ago, some of you, many of you that follow this page, and I appreciate you for doing that. Some of you, not all of you, some of you noticed that I recently bought a brand new pair of specs. Now, I'm struggling with these specs because I'm not sure. Sometimes I look at them and I think, but when I was buying them, you know how sometimes you walk into a store and you see something you like, you try all these different frames, and then you settle for one, and I settled for this one. And you know how it is, you look in the mirror and you say to yourself, well, that's kind of cute, you know. That's after trying 10 or 15 of them. And then you've got the young girl, the young attendant, who's doing everything within her power to convince you to buy a frame. So every single frame you put on, she's like, oh, that is so perfect. You have no idea. And then when you change your mind, she's like, oh, that's the one. That's the one. So it's very difficult to sort of make a choice with the frames. So the rule, I think the rule is go with what you feel. If it's like a haircut. You know how sometimes you get a haircut? If you don't like your haircut, the whole world can tell you your haircut is fabulous. But as long as you don't like it, as long as you're not feeling the haircut, the whole world will tell you it's great. But in here, you won't feel it. I think it's the same with frames. When you look in a mirror, you're buying a brand new frame, for goodness sake, and it's not resonating in your spirit. Don't get that particular frame. Get a different one. So here it is. I bought this one. Now, the thing about these frames, I must confess, is initially when I first saw them, I loved them. I thought these are the ones. Okay. It gave me, I sort of felt it took me back to the 70s or the 60s, late 60s, early 70s. I thought in my mind. So I go ahead and order the you know how they do, you buy the frame and then they charge you separately for the lens. The lenses, there too. So a few days after I buy the frames, I'm thinking, these frames, I'm not sure. So I'm asking you, what do you think? They look good on you. Really? Thank you. Okay. Interesting. Well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. Well, hey, guys, I just wanted to very quickly bring something to you that I think is very, very important. Let me begin by, first of all, saying that it is the nature. My father used to say, it is the nature of man to sue and to be sued. You know, it doesn't matter how great of a citizen you are, somewhere along the line, especially if you have some semblance of notoriety. Notoriety means, you know, people know you. Eventually, you will either sue or someone will sue you. I'll never forget when Michael Jackson, you remember Michael Jackson, the late king of pop, he was sued multiple times. He went through court a multiplicity of multitudinous hundreds of times he went to court. But I remember one particular case back in 1983, I think it was 1983, 84, somewhere there. There was a young lady by the name of Billie Jean Jackson. This is a documented fact. Billie Jean Jackson sued Michael Jackson. She filed a paternity suit against Michael Jackson, claiming that Michael Jackson was the father of one of her children. Okay. And she filed, listen to this, she filed a $150 million lawsuit against Michael Jackson. And she took it to court. You know, of course, here on this side of the planet, we look at those stories, we hear those stories, we hear those figures, 150 million US dollars. And we think, oh, that's ridiculous. That's preposterous. That's absolutely insane. But the truth is, she sued him, filed the lawsuit, and Michael Jackson defended himself. Fast forward to about 2008, 2009. The same lady, I think it was 2008, same lady sued Michael Jackson for $1 billion, claiming that his last born son, Prince Michael Jackson, not Prince, what was his name? Blanket, she claimed that she was the mother of Blanket, and she was suing Michael Jackson for $1 billion, $1 billion with a B, not an M, $1 billion. Now, here's the thing. I said all of that to say this. It is the nature of man to sue and to be sued. The only difference is you have to know how to defend yourself in court, and you don't always need a lawyer. Now, this is the deal now. This is a reason why I have asked you to join me for a few minutes, and I'm going to keep it under 30 minutes because I know you're busy. How to defend yourself in court, in the Zambian court system, on an assault charge. Now, I come to you not as a lawyer, obviously, you know this. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not trained to be a lawyer. I've never been to law school. One of my kids is, though. One of my daughters is a law student, you know. She's studying to be a lawyer. But I do have an experience. I may not have gone to law school. I do not do not possess a law degree, but what I do have, but such as I have, giveth I unto thee. And it's this, it's experience. You know, when you get to my age, you experience lots of things. And I've had an experience, I've had an encounter with this issue of assault. Let me give you the story. And of course, you know already it had to do with Simoson building and my location here and the type of crazy life that I live here at Simoson building. A few years ago, this was about 3 years ago, you know the guys, when anyone that's familiar with Simoson building, you recognize instantly that we have a group of guys, a group of hawkers. You call them hawkers. These are young guys, these are young hustlers that sell slacks, trousers, jeans, all types of slacks. And they stand on the side of the road and they sell their goods to the public, to people who pass by and people who walk by, Well, 3 years ago, these guys used to literally occupy the front of Simoson building. It was hell, to put it bluntly. It's changed now. The system has changed now. But 3 years ago, literally, they would stand right in front of the building. If any one of you that are watching this now, you know what I'm talking about. And in those days, it was a big, huge task to ask them to clear the passage, because what we often found out was that people who were trying to gain access to the building, people who were trying to enter the building, had difficulties doing this because these hawkers would literally block the entrance of Simoson. Simoson has 3 entrances in the front. It's got 2 facades. There's the front side of Simoson, and then there's the northwest side of Simoson, which faces City Market. Well, the main entrance section, the front facade of Simoson, has 3 entrances. And oftentimes these guys would block the entrances. So this one day, out of frustration, I was walking down the corridor and these guys had blocked the corridor. So I pushed 2 of them aside and I said, "Make way." Hey, watu chita soti. Iyo ni asoti yo. Watu guiramo iwe. Yo, watu maiwe. These 2 guys, because I literally, and I pushed them aside, not violently, I just pushed them aside. And I said to them, "Make way." These 2 guys unscrupulously, and I don't know how they did it, they went and they got a medical report. And they went to the police, they went to the clinic, there's some clinic they went to, and they came back with a medical report claiming that I had assaulted them. And they said to me, "Vamwewa mwalu tuchita so apa ngata mwatupere mpia twala ku court." And they wanted 5,000 kwacha each from me. Okay, there were 2 guys, 2 separate cases of assault, each one claiming that I had assaulted them. Well, I looked at them. They walked into my office. This, the room opposite this room. There's a dining hall, a little sitting area. And they looked at me eyeball to eyeball. And they said to me, "Mr. Mwewa, apa if ichala bomba, bantu ngatamwatupere mpia, twalafya ku court. So, mutupere kofia ma 5 pin each. If you don't compensate us," they said to me, monetarily, and they were seeking monetary compensation for their claim. "If you do not pay us, Mr. Mwewa, we will take you to court for assault, the both of us. And Mr. Mwewa, you know very well that as long as I have a medical report and I report you to the police, imwe kuya bebele. Nikao fela bwana muzayenda. Vazamironga imwe," is what they said to me. I looked at these two guys and I said, you know what? You can jump through this. You can literally jump through this. I will not give you the satisfaction of extorting money from me because I asked you to step aside. You should have seen these guys. They were like, what? Mr. Mwewa. Now to quote the medical report, now to quote the medical poeli. I medical nga twala fye ku police ba Mwewa. Na nshimo chapwa. I said, son, you go ahead. You two clowns, go ahead and do whatever the heck you want. And they walked out of my office. They left. And as they were walking out, they were saying to me, oh, we warned you. We have told you. If we came here in peace to tell you that fidia tumi ne fidia pantu mwari tuma. Chimono kutuma. Fidia mwana ndirati step aside. Yeah, I look, this was 3 years ago, guys. I'll never forget this. I laugh now. It wasn't funny at the time. So they started telling me, they said, well, we've warned you and, whatever happens from here, it's not our fault. We tried to reach out to you, but obviously you are unreasonable and you're going to have to bear the brunt of your decision, they said, basically. And they left. I'm not kidding you guys. The very next day, I'll never forget this. I'm standing outside. You know how I do. I'm always downstairs. I spend, I think, on an average, I spend about an hour and a half, 2 hours a day on the street to familiarize myself with my surroundings. I have to do that. The nature of my job requires me to do that. I can't just sit in my office all day. I need to interact with my surroundings, my environment. So the very next day, I'm standing downstairs. I'm outside, doing my thing, And then all of a sudden, I see these three officers, these cops. They approach me with AK-47s. Two of them had guns. The third guy didn't have a gun. And so this guy walks up to me and he says, Bamwewa. Twaisa mkumisenda. I said, what? He says, yo, twafuma paka nyama hapa. Twaisa mkumisenda. Kuri complaint yuku. Na bamichita report ku police. Kuri nama medical report yabidi. Assault. 2 charges of assault, Mr. Mwewa. Now, Mr. Mwewa, it is either you come with us quietly or we manhandle you, which we don't want to do. So our advice to you, Mr. Mwewa, is just to come with us so that we process this issue. Kuja kukanyama kuja. We go and finish the matter at the station there. And of course, I'm a big believer in abiding and complying. When an officer asks you to do something, just do what the officer says. So I said, okay, sure. Now, these 3 officers arrested me in full view of all of the hawkers, the guys that sell slacks. The moment they saw that, oh my goodness, these guys, this was 3 years ago. These guys erupted in a crescendo of praise, and they were so happy in celebration. They're saying, "Hey, Musendeni, you are to Chushapano." I laugh now. It wasn't funny at the time. Musendeni, you are to Chusha. So there was a Pajero. It was a Pajero, yeah. So I'm sitting in the back seat of the Pajero, and 2 officers on either side of me in the back seat, and then the one officer driving. And they start driving down Simon Mwewa Lane, and these guys, the hawkers, oh man, they're cheering and jeering and saying, "Hey, Mulonge New York." So And now, this is what I found scary because, these hawkers, the driver of the police vehicle, the Pajero, was trying to get through the crowd. And the crowd was gathering around the car and they were cheering and saying, yes, take him away. This man bothers us and blah, blah, blah. What scared me was to disperse the crowd. One of the officers with the gun rolled down the window and he fired in the air twice. And man, I tell you, nothing puts the fear of God in you more than hearing the sound of an AK-47 that's been discharged a few centimeters away from your ear. It was very scary, And so, when they shot in the air, the road was cleared and we sped off. So, we get to Kanyama Police there. And there are a few officers there that I know, because being at my age, officers. I mean, it's just the nature of what it is. So one of the officers there advised me. He says, Mr. Mwewa, these two complainants, you lose nothing, Mr. Mwewa. I'll never forget those words. Mr. Mwewa, you lose nothing. Just pay them. Sorry. Just to pay them. Otherwise, bwana. Now, this is the officer saying this to me. Okay. Now, remember, this is my very first assault case that I've ever dealt with. Okay. The officer says to me, Mr. Mwewa, I'm a police officer. I deal with assault cases all the time. The problem here is that they have a medical report. And that report is what's going to do you in. As long as the medical report is there, Mr. Mwewa, bwana, uko kukotu uko vizakakana, vizamangisana. When you go to court, Mr. Mwewa, and these boys have in their possession a medical report that states unequivocally that you assaulted these boys, oh, Mr. Mwewa, I fear for you. I fear for you, my brother. What you need to do is you need to reach into your pockets and just give these boys what they want. I looked at that officer and I said, sir, there's no way I'm doing that. Because first of all, I didn't assault these boys. And God forbid that I give them the satisfaction of pulling one over me for the sake of just doing it? No, man. No. I'm not going to pay them, and we're going to go to court. I spent the night in jail because, that's the procedure. When the officers in Zambia, I don't know how it works where you're from. In Zambia, when an officer arrests you and he places you in his custody in the police cells, typically you spend the night there. I mean, if it's different if you've got political connections, you make a few phone calls and somebody higher up there, sort of says, okay, let him go. But usually what happens is that, you spend the night in jail for a night and then they release you and then you're given a court date to go and defend yourself. My court case, 2 court cases were at the magistrate's court. And so I did my time. I spent the night in jail. My wife came to see me and she was very distraught about it. Oh my God, that's another story. My wife didn't like the fact that I was in jail. And she said, what did you do? So, I explained to my wife and my wife, because, sometimes wives don't like controversy. When you're married to someone that doesn't want your name to be sort of all over the place. And my wife says, no, I think the best is just get rid of this issue. And I convinced my wife, I said, look, I didn't do this, number one. Number two, I'm not going to give these boys the satisfaction. So I got a lot of support from my wife from that angle. But initially, she was very distraught. Naturally, who wouldn't be? So I'm released from jail the very next day, the next morning. And a few weeks down the line, we start going to court. Now, when you go to court, what I learned very quickly, and I'm so glad I went through this experience, because sometimes, people create monsters where there are no monsters. I mean, there were so many people that told me, no, as long as the medical report is there, Mr. Moyo, you're finished, you're done, you're through. No, it's not true. I learned very quickly. I learned this word, corroboration. Can you read that? Corroboration. That's a very important word in the court system, especially when it comes to things like assault. Corroboration, evidence that supports the statement. When we went to court, now, I also have to make it very clear to you, I didn't hire a lawyer for this. I didn't. This was my first case where I defended myself at the magistrate's court. No lawyer. I just went in there and I simply told my story. Now, what I learned this word, corroboration. The evidence didn't match the claim. Both of the boys claimed, one of them claimed that I hit him so hard he started bleeding from his ears, and the witnesses he brought gave different stories. One said no, he pushed him in the drainage system, and then he hurt. He brushed the side of his face against the fence. Another one says no, Mr. Moyo lifted him up and threw him over the fence. So, which none of that happened, by the way. None of that happened. But I learned what this word means. Corroboration means evidence that supports a statement or a claim. If you don't have that, if there is no corroboration, your case will not be sustained. Your case will not stand. And I was tried separately. Okay, there were the first case. We did the first case. We were done with that. At the end of I think it took I'd say about 2-3 weeks for the first case. 3 weeks. At the end of the 3 weeks, I was found not guilty. Why? Because the evidence didn't corroborate with the statement. The guys were giving contradictory statements that didn't make sense, statements that didn't gel, statements that didn't support the evidence or the lack thereof. Okay, and all they had was he assaulted me. Well, go into the fine details of how he did that. They couldn't explain that, and they had no evidence for that. All they had was a claim and a so-called medical report. Okay. After 3 weeks, not guilty on that one. Boom, we got done with that one. Then the second one, same thing, corroboration. The evidence didn't support the statement, or the statement didn't support the evidence. It didn't gel. It didn't work. 2-3 weeks down the line, boom, Mr. Moyo, the court finds you not guilty. And I walked away with that experience. It was then that I realized that people create monsters where there are no monsters. Sometimes you have to go through the process. Now, assuming, because I know the heading is how to defend yourself in court on an assault charge. Assuming you didn't commit what's been alleged. assuming you didn't do that, you've got a great chance because the evidence won't support the statement. It's different if someone has evidence on you. They've got the videotape, or they have eyewitnesses that corroborate exactly what the complainant says when everything matches. That's different. But if you truly didn't commit assault, just go to court. Go to court, because when you get to court, you will find out very quickly that the evidence doesn't match the claim. And when you get to court, they don't look at your face. They don't look at who you are. They just look at the evidence. And then they make a decision based upon that evidence. Okay? That's my experience. All right. Some of your comments. Somebody keeps saying this. Everywhere I look, I see this. Dollar na ikuela. What's the dollar now? Every comment section. I see this. James Williams. You were cells, not in jail. No, that is jail. When they take you to the cells, a holding cell is a jail. A prison is a correctional facility. I know people make this mistake. I hear this all the time. You can't, when you go to a police station and they put you in a cell, that's jail. You're in a jail. But when you're taken to court and the court finds you guilty and they send you to a correctional facility, that is a prison. Two different things, jail and prison. I know people use them interchangeably, but strictly speaking, they're very, very different. Okay. Webster, vamos a talk about hard economy. Okay, guys, here's the thing. I don't talk about things that I don't know about. Okay, I'm not an economist, so I wouldn't be able to talk to you about the economy. You'll need to go to someone that knows the economy to talk about this. I'm not trained as an economist. My father was, but unfortunately, I'm not. And to be honest with you, I'm not even that smart. And that's the truth. Okay. All right, let's read this one. Chembe, at least your situation was okay. I was reported to the police for shouting at my ex-girlfriend. She falsely accused me of slapping her. Really? Sorry to laugh. I wasn't laughing at you. I was just, the way you said that sounded funny. My apologies for that, if I sounded insensitive. Okay, one more and we're done. Look at this. Someone's watching us from Monze. Timothy Mwale Jr. Hello, Timothy. Bless you. But, sir, you know, you can also sue the person that falsely accused you of assault. Yeah, I could. But, you know, who wants the hassle of doing that? You know. Liz, watching us from Deutschland. Good afternoon, everybody. Hello. Yeah. Let me read one more. We're done. Curtis, sorry, Mr. Moore, but in Zambia, things takes very long, or they wait for you to die, unfortunately. Yeah. Hey, guys, thank you so much for watching. And, you know, God bless.